Welcome to the Abundance Effect, where we empower ambitious women with practical tools to live their most rich and fulfilling life in business and beyond. I'm your host, Larisa McCoof. Let's get started. Have you ever been surrounded by people and still felt completely alone? Years ago, when I was living in Saskatoon, I took a trip and spent 3 weeks in New York City. My boyfriend at the time was rehearsing a show. He was in theater and I came with him while he was working. Now, if you know Saskatoon and New York, these are two very, very different experiences. New York has so many people everywhere, on the streets, on the subway, in restaurants, walking past me, standing beside me, moving around me. And I remember walking through the streets thinking, I have never been around this many people in my life. And I've never felt so alone. Nobody talked to me. People kept to themselves. Everyone was just so busy and had somewhere to go. Everyone had this invisible shield around them. And this is before smartphones became what they are now. People weren't walking glued to their devices, glued to their screens the same way they are today. But there was still this feeling of disconnection. Contrast that with the time we spent with the cast. It was like breathing fresh air. Suddenly there were people to talk to, people who looked at you, people who acknowledged you, people who asked questions, laughed, shared stories, and made you feel like you existed. And that contrast, it's really stayed with me for so many years because being around people is absolutely not the same thing as being connected. And today, that is exactly what we're talking about on the Abundance Effect. How to create deeper connection in an increasingly disconnected world. Now, I think a lot of people are really lonely and don't necessarily have the language for it. You might not identify as lonely. You may have a family, you may have friends, you have clients, colleagues, children, a partner, full calendar, a life that looks really connected from the outside. You might even be deeply loved in some ways, in many ways. However, still feel undernourished in others. Now, you might have people who care about you, but not necessarily people who really understand the way you think. You may have conversations all day long, but they're not the kind of conversations that make you truly feel seen. You may be needed by everyone, but not actually known by many. And this distinction really matters because connection is not the same as proximity. It's not just the conversation. It's not just having people around. Connection is the experience of being seen. Connection is the experience of being acknowledged. And connection is the experience of being received and met. The World Health Organization has reported that roughly 1 in 6 people around the world experience loneliness. And loneliness and social isolation, they are connected to real impacts on mental and physical health. This is not just some fluffy emotional topic because connection is actually a part of our health. It's a part of our well-being. This is what makes a really rich and fulfilling life feel rich and fulfilling. Now, there was a Harvard study of adult development. It was one of the longest running studies in adult life. And it found again and again that strong relationships are deeply connected to health and happiness. Robert Weldinger, who directed the study, he said that everybody needs at least one solid relationship, someone they feel that they can count on in times of need. And I love that because it doesn't say everyone needs 400 BFFs, okay? It doesn't say you need to be the most social person in the room. It doesn't even say you need to be constantly available to everyone. But what it does say is you need real connection. And I think that's why so many high-achieving women, they are craving deeper connection. That's exactly what they want. They don't want more surface level socializing. They don't want more group chats, more obligations. They want real human connection. The kind of connection where you can take a breath and exhale. The kind of connection where you don't have to perform. The kind where someone actually sees who you're becoming, not just what you're producing. The kind of connection where you're not only loved for what you do for everyone else, but known for who you actually are. Now, I want you to really think about this idea of creating connection and maintaining connection, because connection doesn't just happen serendipitously. Sometimes it does. Absolutely. And those moments when you meet someone and chemistry is just immediate, the sparks fly, that is amazing. Sometimes you just walk in a room and feel at home. Sometimes there's a friendship, a partnership, a community. It just forms really naturally. But a lot of times, connection actually has to be created. And then, once it's created, it has to be maintained. Okay, these are two different skills. So creating connection is the reach. It's the invitation. It's the message. It's the question. It's the moment you decide to go first. However, maintaining connection is the practice. It's about checking in. It's about expressing appreciation. It's about making time, noticing when distance is forming. It's about choosing not to let meaningful relationships survive only on convenience. And I think summer is a great example of that. A lot of people connect more deliberately in the summer. It's great weather. You go to the cottage, you host people, you have barbecues, you sit outside, you go for walks, you go to concerts, you travel, you have dinners, beach days, barbecues, moments where life opens up just a little bit. However, the question is, are you creating connection only when the season makes it easy? Or are you willing to practice connection as a part of how you live? Because deep connection requires attention. And attention is the most basic form of love. I think that's worth sitting with. Like, really think about that. Attention is the most basic form of love. We could use more love in the world. People are so physically present, but not really attentive. A lot of times we're in the room, but we're mentally somewhere else. We're listening, but half planning our response. We're with our children, but checking the phone. We're with our partners and thinking about work. We're with ourselves, avoiding our own thoughts. And if attention is one of the ways we communicate love, then scattered attention creates scattered connection. So where do you start? Well, you got to start with yourself. Because if you're disconnected from yourself, it is really hard to create honest connection with others. If you don't know what you need, if you don't know what you feel, if you don't know what actually matters to you, if you haven't spent 5 whole minutes with your own thoughts, you're going to find yourself performing connection instead of experiencing it. Right? It's not a show. It's not like you're like, woohoo, let's connect. No, you want to feel the connection. You want to live the connection. And this is one of the reasons I talk so much about mornings. Your morning isn't just about productivity. It's actually a place where you return to yourself before the entire rest of the world starts asking for pieces of you. This is a place where you can ask, what do I need today? How do I want to show up? Who matters to me? Where am I feeling on point and totally connected? And where am I feeling disconnected? What relationships are thriving, but which relationships need a little more care and attention? What part of me needs more attention? Okay, this doesn't have to be complicated. It could just be a few minutes of journaling, a prayer, a walk, a quiet coffee without your phone. These small acts of self-care are key. And I encourage everyone to do 3 or more acts of self-care each and every day. You might make yourself a beautiful meal. Maybe you'll move your body. Maybe you'll sit outside. But you want to put your hand on your heart. You want to really feel what's going on in there and tell yourself the truth. Okay? The point isn't just adding more activity or a checklist to your life. The point behind all of these self-care activities, the point behind doing something for yourself that matters is to tell yourself that you matter. You want to say, hey, girl, like, I matter. My inner life matters. My relationships matter. My presence matters. And from that place, connection becomes so much less about needing everyone else to fill your cup and more about really stepping into the relationship with honesty, openness, and intention. You're going to fill yourself up because you're caring for yourself first, each and every day. And you're going to have the capacity to be available for others, to really have that rich and fulfilling life. Now, a few years ago on one of our morning success calls, I do morning calls with my clients each and every day. We've been doing them for several years now. 6:30 a.m. every single day, Monday to Friday, we get together. And a couple years ago, we had one of these moments that I still think about to this day. And it happened serendipitously. We did a round robin where everyone shared what they liked, loved, respected, and admired about each other. These people see each other every single day. And so people showed up to these calls. I knew they got value. I knew they loved the structure. I knew that consistency mattered. But that moment, that day was so different because people stepped up to a whole different level of vulnerability. Most people found it was easier to share what they liked, loved, respected, and admired about others. Some felt really uncomfortable receiving. They had tears because nobody had actually ever told them some of these beautiful things about themselves. There was support. Everyone had each other's back. And it was such a beautiful moment because people heard things reflected back to them that they didn't realize others noticed about them. But they saw the best of who they were on the inside and shared that with one another. And so that became a real defining moment of intimacy inside this community because people weren't just attending a call. They were actually seen. And I think this is something we try to do at the Abundance Academy on any of our calls, in any of our programs, is really, truly see people for who they are. Okay, this is a completely different experience. Now, think of someone in your life. Think of someone you care about, someone you appreciate, someone who actually matters to you. And ask yourself, what do you like about them? What do you love about them? What do you respect about them? And what do you admire about them? Now, here's the part that changes everything. Don't just think it, don't just feel it. Actually tell them. Like, get it out of you and express it. Because unexpressed appreciation, it does not create the same level of connection as something that you express from the inside out. People aren't always going to feel what you never say. They can't always know what you don't actually call out and give a name to. And sometimes the thing that would deeply nourish someone else is the thing that you assumed was obvious. Miscommunication is rampant, even with people we most care about, even with those we love the most. And so it may not be obvious, but go ahead, verbally say it, send the message, leave a voice note, write a card, look them in the eyes, let them know whatever resonates with you, but get it out of yourself and gift it to other people. Another lens I find really useful in the idea of building love and connection is this idea of giving and receiving. And I love using the model of the 5 love languages. Now, these 5 love languages were coined by Gary Chapman. And he was a pastor who worked with a lot of couples and found out that they speak different languages. They don't communicate very well to one another. But some people have needs, and the way we like to give love, we also tend to want to receive. But your partner might have other ways of demonstrating love and wanting to receive love. You might deeply love and care for one another, but if you're speaking 2 different languages, you will not necessarily understand one another. And that was a huge thing he found made a difference to a lot of relationships, is getting people on the same page with what their own love language was, but what other people's love languages are. It's really important to remember that people give and receive connection very differently. Some people feel love through words, okay? Words of affirmation, you speak it. Some people through time, right? Quality time, spending quality time with one another. It doesn't even have to be a lot of time, but just really quality time. Some people love feeling love through touch, like physical touch. Others through acts of service, and others through thoughtful gifts. Okay, so words of affirmation, quality time, touch, acts of service, thoughtful gifts. And often when we're giving in the way that is natural to us, if others are wired differently, that miscommunication, it's like 2 ships passing in the night. You may be asking logical questions when your partner, child, or friend is actually craving emotional attention. One of the simplest ways to deepen connection is to pay attention to how others demonstrate their love, now that you're aware of what these 5 love languages are. There's also a test online. You can go look that up. You can also ask them how they feel most loved. Not everyone's going to know, but really start paying attention to yourself. What makes you feel loved. You're probably going to find you have 2 primary love languages. And in our house, we've practiced these with our son. My son is very proficient at giving all 5 forms of love to people. And he's also very proficient at receiving. And because we've made a deliberate effort of giving him love in all 5 modalities, he loves all 5. He's very non-partial. But for most people, you'll probably have 2 that are comfortable and more familiar with. Notice what your preferences are and start practicing the others. Start giving other people love and attention in their love language. And notice what that does to your relationship. Okay? This is going to help you show love and appreciation for others in a whole new way. When you really start thinking about building true love and connection, building true intimacy, whether it's with a partner, a child, a parent, a friend, anyone, you're going to start showing up and having more rich and fulfilling relationships. Start deepening the little connections you have. They'll be more meaningful. Make them even more fulfilling. But you want to start looking at where you can go first, where you are in control, and go from there. Stop blocking what other people are trying to give and put yourself out there. Now, the world is increasingly getting more and more disconnected by the day. I don't think we need more performative connection. We need more of those real moments, those thoughtful messages, those deeper questions, moments of undivided attention, willingness to be honest, or willingness to say, I appreciate you, I miss you, this matters to me. When you sit long enough, pay attention to yourself and learn what you actually need, you're going to start noticing these things in others. So my challenge to you is go choose one connection practice, one teeny tiny thing I've talked about, and go do it. Just one. Spend 10 minutes with yourself without your phone. Tell someone what you like, love, respect, or admire about them. Go express gratitude that you might only think about and verbally tell someone. Go physically give it to them. Ask someone how they might best receive support. Reach out to someone you've been meaning to connect with. Create moments inside instead of waiting for them to magically appear, because connection is not just something you find, it is something you practice. And if this episode is reminding you that you want to begin your days with more intention, more clarity, and a stronger connection to yourself, I would love to invite you to join me for my free masterclass. It's called Rewire Your Morning, Reinvent Your Life. And in this 90-minute session, I'm going to show you how you can use your mornings to reconnect with yourself, to align your thoughts, your habits, your feelings, and begin training the identity that can support the life you actually want to live. Because the way you start your day is going to affect how you show up in your relationships. It's going to affect how you show up in your work, how you make your decisions, and how you live your life. You can register through the link in the show notes. And I would love, love, love to see you there if it's resonating with you. Remember, you do not need to wait for the world to become less disconnected. You can create deeper connection right where you are. Start with yourself, then reach out to others, and let us know how it's going. I'll see you again next time on The Abundance Effect. Bye for now.